Smart Energy 2025 is just around the corner. The annual renewables event of the year returns to Sydney on April 9 and 10. In the midst of a federal election focused on energy, be amongst key decision makers and 12,000 delegates to showcase your solutions, expand your network, and position your brand for growth. As the Smart Energy Council celebrates its 70th anniversary, there's no better place to be than at Smart Energy 2025. Visit smartenergyexpo.org.au for details.
Welcome back to Just Another Solar Podcast with Luke Beattie. That's me. Karl Jensen, how are you, mate?
Awesome. It's been a hectic week, Luke. Lots of news. Pretty exciting. I listened to last week's podcast in the car yesterday, and I reckon we knocked that one out of the park, so I'm excited for today. The guests that really knock it out of the park are the people that we see out on the road, on the road shows and those sorts of things. And for me, that's a real buzz that we can get that sort of talent on the podcast to talk to our listeners.
And industry legend Nigel Morris. G'day, Nige.
G'day, team. Great to be back. I'm with you. The solar coaster's in full swing. What a week. Man, oh man, I've got stories to tell, some of which I will on air and some of which I won't. But yeah, I'm pumped. Had a week in Queensland, which was fantastic. 2 shows up there, doing market forecasts and you know, projections for the year and getting the vibe and learning a lot about some of the nuances of what goes on in Queensland. So, and great, and catching up. The sold out show in Brizzy, which was unreal. And Townsville was down a bit because of the floods, but still fantastic, great people, great times.
And the co-host with the biggest news, Jess MacPherson. Drop your bomb. Go for it. What's your big news of the week?
I was hoping you'd do it for me, Luke.
Okay, I'm going to do it for you then, Jess. Okay, g'day, Jess MacPherson, all the way from Adelaide. Jess got engaged, and we're stoked for you, Jess. It's an
succumbed in a moment of
mate.
45-degree heat, hey, Jess?
Oh, goodness. It really wasn't my best moment. I think my exact words, I'm a bit embarrassed to say, were, yeah, I guess so. But very over the moon, super happy. He did very, very well. And I'm just, it's not quite real yet, but I do very much appreciate you guys giving me a big rev up on it, really.
Huge congratulations, Jess. It's a wonderful step, you know, whether it's a relationship or a marriage or whatever, you know, getting to that point in a relationship, you know, we're all humans at the end of the day. And, you know, getting to that point and looking ahead for the future, well, we're so happy for you.
Thanks so much, you guys. All right, into the solar news. We got too much going on. We gotta keep it going.
The massive news, and I'm going to jump in here from WA, is that there was a campaign launch for the Cook government, who are very likely to win the election and come through. And they came out with a battery scheme and also a no interest loan scheme. So what it means in WA is that there's up to $5,000 towards a battery as a rebate for Synergy customers, which is all of Perth and surrounds, and up to $7,500 for Horizon customers, which is the rest of WA. Now, the no interest loan scheme is over a 10-year period, and it's up to $10,000. We welcome this and think the Cook government cooked something really great here in WA. However, there was a little bit of apprehension, and I'll give you the story. So it was in the newspaper on Saturday in the West, and then first thing on Sunday morning, I had Wayne Smith from the SEC contacted me and said, have you seen the news? So I said, yes, I've seen the news. So there was a campaign launch Sunday morning. They announced the battery scheme. And then he said, can you have a media conference in 3 hours' time? So we had Charlie Caruso, the GM for the SEC over here, Connor Price, who's a stalwart of the SEC over here. We had 3 of the networks, 7, 9, 10 here to speak about it. And in the time from when it was announced to when I did that press conference, I received 2 messages from our customers in WA who had already been contacted by customers to postpone their installs because the scheme start date is the 1st of July. Oh. Now, over the following day and Monday, this thing really accelerated and the SEC moved straight away. So they were consulting with the companies. They had a crisis meeting online. We all got in the media. So we were on 9, we're on ABC, we're on 6PR radio, ABC radio. And in the middle of the campaign, we actually got a seat at the table, or the SEC facilitated a seat at the table with Energy, the Premier's Department, and Treasury to speak to them about it, about the impact to industry. So we were calling for backdating of this scheme because it's impacting, you know, the pipeline of companies. Imagine if most of your pipeline for the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks disappears or gets moved into July. So the first thing was we're pushing for backdating, but the government can't do anything because they're in caretaker mode. So we have to wait until the 10th of March till we can actually sit down. So they've committed that we'll have a industry roundtable to help inform the scheme, and they're going to move quickly once they're back in government. So let's look at the good. It's excellent.
Yeah, let's look at that loan, Luke. If you were to borrow that money out of your loan, let's say 10 grand, $600 a year, 10 years, $6,000 in interest. So most people aren't going to have cash to buy a battery. They're going to borrow it out of their mortgage. More realistic is probably 15 grand, and 15 grand would be $900 a year in interest and cost them $9,000. So if they cycle that battery, say 10 kilowatt hours a day, 3,650 kilowatt hours a year, we're talking 20 cents a kilowatt hour in interest. So aside from the cost of the battery, that's half the cost of the battery. So if our battery cycling cost is sort of 40 cents a kilowatt hour, to add another 20 cents is a deal breaker. So that scheme is going to be the best scheme in Australia. In Victoria, it's an $8,800 loan, but it's only good for 4 years. The fact that it runs out 10 years is just awesome for WA. It really is.
Doesn't Tassie have one as well that's interest-free, that's government supported? I thought they did. Maybe something for us to double check.
That's really, really good news. It's so nice to hear that it would appear that they've thought it through and they've tried to mitigate the negative impacts. I also heard on the grapevine that, of course, the feds are watching closely what's happening with rebates and indeed maybe using some of the rebate models and some of the thinking behind some of these models as a guide towards what hopefully might come federally. So watching these state one rolls out is kind of like watching tests happen, pilot tests. So it's...
Well, let's have the takeaway then, Nige, that if we're talking about, we know that there's a potential for a battery booster program. Also, the SEC is pushing that, and there's an indication from both the government and the coalition that there may be a battery scheme.
Yep.
So the takeaways there for everyone in the country is that be prepared that if the announcement comes before the election, we'll see what we saw in New South Wales, what we've now seen in WA, that people are going to put off buying batteries until the start of the scheme or until they get more information.
It's not just the batteries that they'll stop buying. So everybody comes to the showroom or makes the phone call wanting to get a solar system with a battery. The reason why they don't get a battery is because it's bloody expensive, and then they go with a solar system. So not only does it stop the battery sales, it stops all the sales.
It does, Karl. And this is the takeaways that I have down here for WA companies immediately. And then it may apply if we get a national battery scheme and solar and battery installs come to a standstill. So my takeaways are this. The education to the customer is that it's a limited scheme, 20,000. That seems like a lot, but there's about 4,500 installs per month in WA. So when you do the maths backwards on that, factor in a bit of a bump, people will need to get in quickly to secure it. The best way to secure it is to get your solar today, start getting your solar savings, and then we will come back with the battery when the scheme is in place. For those who are going for the no interest loans, that's not an option. For
it's
those
also
who
really important to put that system in now so that they can get some real data. We've always said you can't manage what you can't measure, and by putting in a inverter that's got consumption monitoring, which you need for a battery system, you've got 4 months worth of data at least before that battery comes along, and it gives the customer the tools to be able to say, I need a 10 kilowatt hour, I need a 15 kilowatt hour, I need a 25 kilowatt hour. That's actually a good thing for industry, that people can be in a position to gather that data before jumping into buying a battery.
And just
That's
as
a great
importantly, Karl, it's going to keep the businesses ticking over between now and the 1st of July. At the moment, you speak to WA companies, they're more concerned about making sure that their installers have things to do, their administrators have things to do, because come July, we're going to be super busy, but they need to be able to retain all the stuff through there. So my other two quick takeaways for WA companies now: all of your installers should use this period to get their battery accreditation. There's going to be a constriction on install capacity. Phones will run hot to people like myself and others to say, do you know anyone who has capacity? I can tell you come July, August, everyone's going to be flat out. So now's the time to upskill your installers to have their battery accreditation. And the other thing is, and I'll just leave it at that and you guys can comment, is that it looks like the SEC will facilitate a roundtable with the government and the department who's going to be managing this post-election. We need to have all of the points together before then. What are the lessons we've learned from other states? How does industry want the government to manage compliance, safety? If you are in WA, you are going to be participating in this scheme. All of that information is being collated by Charlie Caruso and Connor Price from the SEC. If you don't have their contacts, reach out to us, we'll give them. But now is the time to get your input in so we can come to that round table informed and we can help shape a scheme that's going to be excellent for all of us.
Yeah. And, South Australia, we had the home battery scheme. And I think by the end of it, I'd say, well, probably it didn't take too long for us to call it quite successful. But the start of it was quite rocky. It was just before I started in the industry. And it was pretty rough. So, we've seen it in Sydney and we've seen, lots of crossover between where the states could communicate and learn from each other's mistakes and just not have to go through the hard yards. And I, for one, really hope that this can be exhibit A of people doing exactly that. Just to my earlier comment as well, Tassie does have a zero interest loan that's managed by Bright, up to $500 to $10,000, repayments up to 3 years. Not too shabby, I don't think.
Not too shabby at all. And I agree, a wonderful opportunity to take all those lessons learned. Gosh, there's so much of this that we should be doing. I hate to get political, but I'm going to get political because when I was travelling around in Queensland, one of the things that several people commented to me on was that they'd been talking to their local Liberal members, their federal Liberal members, about, the upcoming election and some of the issues that are big. And a common theme that I heard up there was that the federal Liberal members, in assessing what might be popular with voters in the upcoming federal election, was batteries. And the Liberals said, look, we're not so keen on solar. We kind of like, the big nuclear story. But, batteries we're okay with because that kind of fits in. So you could intuit pretty quickly that there's going to be potentially a bit of a swinging match from both sides of politics that is very focused on batteries. Interestingly, I also heard, and I then validated by looking online, I heard a rumour that Peter Dutton, who has come out kicking solar to the ground again and again and again, along with his party members, Peter Dutton apparently has a massive solar system.
No.
Massive solar system. Yeah, dead set.
So he's got his benefits and now
he's got his rebate.
Cut everyone else off because I'm doing fine.
Oh, well, he probably got a free uni degree as well. I don't want to hear it. I do.
He got good stock tips as well, apparently.
He's got some good insider tips.
He probably bought his first house for a carton of beer. I don't I just.
It does highlight that, those who are knocking the renewable industry, when it comes to the crunch, they can't help but do it themselves because they realise it makes so much sense, and the hypocrisy is evident.
I'd love to jump across, Jess. We heard some interesting not gossip, but news from one of the module manufacturers.
Yeah, so word on the grapevine is that REC, Australia's division anyway, I think only has 2 people standing, is the word on the street. Who knows what the implications of that are? I think REC has been that only premium panel really in the market since the departure of LG, and SunPower and those sorts of ones kind of waning. So it sort of follows a trend in a sense. I don't know. I think it'll be very interesting where everyone else stands without that sort of extreme point in the market for comparison. It'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, actually, because they're not the only entity that is doing a little bit of belt tightening. In fact, I'm up to a count of about 6 companies that I know that are doing belt tightening out there. And, that's indicative of continuingly tough times out there in the macroeconomic environment and certainly in the solar industry as well. So it's continuing to be tricky out there.
And Prophet Rami from Solar Juice, he's said that he thinks that panel pricing is about to start going up for the first time in a long time. So, that's only going to make things tougher on people like REC in particular, but for everyone, of course.
I did speak to Paul Skerry. He was the country manager for REC. And I said, hey, mate, heard some rumours. Turns out a guy like Paul Skerry, an amazing talent, been in our industry a very long time. He won't be looking for a job for very long. He was very positive towards REC's continued future in Australia with a leaner model So they're not going anywhere, just the model's different. Of all the people that I talk to on a day-to-day basis, being lean and mean in this current economic climate is really important for everybody. If you look at wages bills versus modules sold, it's very tough to have a lot of people when you're not selling a huge amount of gear, because the cost per watt ratchets up extremely quickly. So wish all of those people that have been moved along from REC a new place in the industry with somebody else.
Absolutely. Now, before we bring the guest in, Nigel, we've been going on about the Vic backstop and all the news around that. We won't delve too deep into it now, but there was some good news this week.
Oh, you're going to hold me back now?
Oh, go on, unleash. Open the floodgates. Open the floodgates.
No, actually, two very quick things. Number one, there has definitely been an improvement in server performance. We are seeing more systems get through. We're seeing more compliant tests pass. Quite significant. It's not completely done. There are still some bugs and issues, but significant improvements. So for all of those of you out there trying to get systems through, that should be really, really good news. Secondly, and critically, a very important piece of information is that City Power Core made announcements this week that legacy systems are no longer required to be compliant. So a legacy system is when you have an existing system, you add a new solar system, the new system needs backstop compliance, but the old system had to be done as well. And that is a huge problem for all the obvious reasons, especially if it's 10 or 15 years old. It's currently not even necessarily possible. However, City Power and Power Core have acquiesced and said that that's no longer going to be a requirement. I haven't actually seen the exact details. I've just seen screenshots. We expect the other DNSPs to follow suit. And I think what this is testament to an industry standing up and saying this is causing problems for consumers. It's causing problems for solar installers. It's an ill-conceived but perhaps well-intentioned idea.
And it was something that was promised. So we were promised by Solar Victoria and so on that legacy systems wouldn't be affected. So that was something that the DNSPs took it upon themselves to impose on the industry, and it made it quite hard. I had a bit of a stoush on the Cutters forum about multiple devices. Can I get Enphase with an AC-DC coupled battery to work in this environment? Of course, the various manufacturers aren't obliged to test with what's otherwise third-party hardware. So it can be quite a minefield for the installer, because all of a sudden now he's got to get two pieces of hardware to communicate and work with backstop. And for us inverter manufacturers that are struggling or have spent a lot of time and effort just to get our gear to work, let alone our gear plus somebody else's, I think that's a big challenge for the industry.
It's a big problem for us here in SA. So not so much for backstop or our alternative smarter homes. That side of things isn't too hard, because that does the same as you guys have there. Legacy equipment doesn't apply. But just, looking a bit into the future with flexible exports, it's a massive problem in terms of if somebody already has a system and they want to add something on, unless you have two pieces of kit that are both compatible with Catch Power, shout out Catch Power, there's really no other third-party solution that will allow different brands to work. And there are a few brands that can have multiple inverters that are even the same brand. So yes, it is. It's a hard space. Yes.
Yes. And we did
do that, Jess.
We did make a couple of announcements, which I'm not going to repeat here, but we have some very clever solutions in the pipeline.
If we keep talking about this and our guest isn't introduced, he's going to burst apart at the seams.
Bring him in.
I have to bring the guest in because I know he would have a lot of input on everything we've discussed. Stalwart of the industry. So Lliam Ricketts is a co-founding director of Supply Partners and by extension, New Energy Training. Very respected, very experienced, and I'm sure he could speak to everything we have as well. But welcome to the podcast, Lliam.
Thanks for having me, crew. Yeah, it was great to be listening to that, and I was having trouble holding back the mute button, I can tell you that, mate.
If there's anything you'd like to circle back to, that's fine, but I think we've got enough to talk through. Most of the industry knows you, mate, but it'd still be good to go back and to just give us a brief on who you are, what you do.
Yeah, a little bit of history. I just looked back today and counted it out. 16 years ago, I started in the industry. So 2009, I started in this great industry and jumped onto one of the carts of the solar coaster and definitely been up and down. But from 2009 to 2012, we were actually a retail company called Future Sustainability. Our slogan was taking care of the next generation back then. And we did quite a run of residential solar mainly. We did about 5,000 residential properties, so quite a portfolio in those years, mainly in Queensland and northern New South Wales. And we did a small portfolio of commercial jobs, but I think a 30 kilowatt back then was a monster. So we did a small portfolio, kind of 30 kilowatt jobs. But from
Just quick, was that the
2000
same directors? So that was John, Pat, yourself?
Correct. There was another founder who has been out of the business since about 2011. But yeah, myself, John DeGattati and Patrick Morrissey are all founders from back in 2009 and have all been on this journey the whole way together.
So you started doing these commercial jobs, and I remember back then 30 kilowatts was massive. Now you look at how many 100 kilowatts and larger are going out just as standard jobs, but that was a big thing. So you were doing a bit of commercial. 5,000 resi systems is nothing to sneeze at. So where did you go from there?
We were lucky enough to have a run like that in those early days when there was a lot more profit in a typical residential job. So we were able to reinvest those profits into stepping into distribution. And from 2012, we rebranded as Supply Partners and have been 100% a wholesale distributor. And just touching on that, commercial jobs at a 30 kilowatt was kind of a really big system. Back then, a lot of people were apprehensive to do a system larger than 30 kilowatts because they couldn't understand what a network protection relay was. Like, we look at it now and it seems quite a simple piece of technology in the myriad of things we need to deal with. But back then, people would look at a network protection relay and it'd be a barrier to entry to the over 30 kVA market, and also zero export. So back then, none of the inverters would be able to ramp natively by the manufacturers. And we actually developed a product with a PLC inside of it, talking directly to the inverters, throttling those inverters up and down. So in 2012, as we became supply partners in just 100% distribution, we started really providing technical support to the industry right at the start of being a distributor. And we developed a network protection board that had a PLC in it ramping inverters. So we kind of helped the market take a step into that over 30 kilowatt space when it was quite tricky to do so.
Geez, it's like you're not just box movers, are you?
And I think it's been that's a slogan we've run for some time. So yeah, not just a box mover, technical support, it's something we stand behind and we still do today. So yeah, that's kind of how we came up with that slogan, was we were developing a solution that the market needed and they didn't have. And we started providing that technical support. Beyond there, I actually did a little bit more in helping the industry move into commercial solar. I did a roadshow called the Commercial Solar Workshops with Warwick Johnson, actually, back then, and we utilised his PV cell software quite hard. And we were just really teaching people how to match a load profile to a PV production profile and calculate the returns to sell commercial solar. But we had sellout rooms across the country, and we helped a lot of businesses understand how to sell a commercial solar system and really helped people diversify and move into commercial PV, not just residential. So, that really excites me, doing training and helping businesses move into new areas and diversify. And it's something I'm very passionate about.
There's still a lot of businesses that aren't there yet, Liam. I see on LinkedIn this week, a couple of my customers have done their first Fronius Vertos or their first 100 kilowatt systems. As a young installer grows their business, they become more capable and more interested in doing these bigger systems. So it's still a strong growth sector of the market.
We definitely see that. Like, our team does a lot of single line diagrams and commercial feasibility studies for rooftop PV, as well as now commercial batteries. But yeah, we're constantly helping installers that are breaking away to set up their own retail business or coming into industry, from being typical electricians to solar electricians and doing their first commercial install. So it's definitely happening, but there's definitely a very mature cohort of solar businesses that have done a ton of rooftop commercial PV. And I think now is really the next frontier with commercial, which is moving into commercial storage.
Hey, Liam, in your brief, you said you wanted to talk about EV chargers. I happened to go to Canberra over the weekend and I stopped at the new Tesla supercharger in Albury. So the one in Wodonga was particularly ordinary, and the one in Albury, which was done by Waters, apparently took 6 months. There's 24 305 kilowatt chargers. And for people listening, that means you've got 24 300 mil XLPE cables feeding this thing 3,200 amps of three-phase, which from anyone who knows anything about cables and shifting power, that's a shitload of power to move.
It's a
And
lot of
all
juice.
very, very impressive stuff to look at. I literally wandered around the car park looking at that infrastructure, but it was 6 months worth of work for the guys at Waters, and those sorts of projects. Obviously, 6 months, tons and tons of really expensive gear, and really impressive to see the solar industry moving into that space and doing that work.
Yeah, it is. It is really exciting, and you're right. Once a few of these charges goes in, it can really be overloading the site. So load management, or putting in a commercial battery, or having to augment the site and pull in larger mains. So it is getting more complex to put in these bigger powered chargers. Like at the moment, we're distributing a lot of a 30 kVA DC charger, but we've got a 180 kilowatt DC charger about to join our office. So yeah, we're starting to move into that space and having to deal with these challenges on the sites.
Yeah, it's something that's coming up in our world more and more, either by people coming to us saying, hey, can you help us with load shedding or load management so that we can keep these charges ramped up? And even in the case of some technology providers, and I actually visited a technology provider in Queensland who is hoping to bring a product to the market which's got integrated storage in it. And we've seen these coupled up before. And I heard a lot about particularly the delays with Ampol service stations trying to roll out theirs and facing 6 or 9 month delays just in getting network augmentations done so that they could get these systems connected up to the network. Even if you get the people to do it and get the hardware and get everything else, you're still going to wait 6 or 9 months. So we're starting to see some really cool innovation around the technology that can reduce that lead time, enhance the ability of EV chargers to deliver that high power through a variety of different sources. And of course, as we hear about across all parts of the industry, integrating EV chargers, storage, solar, and grid management services all together into one sweet little app.
You also mentioned commercial storage. How are you coaching your customers so they can be ahead of the pack?
Yeah, that's an area that I'm focusing on almost 100% in my role at the moment. So, I'm one of the founding directors, but my title is Innovation Director, and I'm the one that's always looking at where our business is going and where the industry is going and how we can continue to change and, stay in front of the pack. I mentioned before the commercial solar workshops we did. That was back in 2017. And I actually had a look back in 2018 at All Energy Conference. I did an event called Commercial and Industrial Energy Storage is Here in 2018. I think I had ABB, had a containerized battery out, and Sungrow had a partnership with Samsung SDI and had a containerized solution out. And I was excited about commercial storage back then and did an event called Commercial Energy Storage is Here. I don't think it was really here when it comes to our section of the industry. But that's how I get excited, mate. I look at what I think's coming and I usually will jump in front of it before it's here. And that's a perfect example of that. But I'm super excited to now be embarking on a national roadshow. Anyone that has attended a Supply Partners training workshop before, you'll know we do them different. We do them in an engaging way. We don't let these things drag all day. We offer meaningful content and give it in a short, sharp way. And I'm about to deliver a new roadshow called Diversify Beyond Solar, which is focusing on commercial energy storage and destination charging, so fast EV charging. So we're just about to start a national roadshow, which is going to kick off in Perth, in your home city over there. 3rd of April, we'll do one in Perth. And then we're going to go national. The second and third one are actually going to be on the SEC floor. So at the Smart Energy Conference and Exhibition, we're going to do the second and third one of those in a theatre on the floor. And the full focus of this training seminar is to help people understand how can I diversify my business beyond just doing commercial solar into doing commercial storage and EV charging, and looking at scenarios on how we can model examples for people and help them understand, okay, if I've got a portfolio of commercial rooftop systems I've done over the last 10 years and I've got a heap of happy customers there, well, that's your lowest hanging fruit, going back to those people and going, we put in 100 kilowatts or we put in a megawatt system. The returns have stacked up to what we've said. These people have now had a win off you and what you've done for them. There's an opportunity now to come back and get your first commercial battery sale and diversify your business.
These sorts of projects need your technical team as well to help, Liam. We see on TV, Tesla had a couple of big battery fires in Australia when they're putting their systems together. We saw one of the biggest lithium battery fires globally happened a month or two ago. So it's important to upskill and train your staff so that no one's getting hurt and no one's burning anything down either.
Definitely. Knowing what you're doing when it comes to installing them and commissioning them in a safe way is important, but getting to the point of having a deal where you're putting a commercial BESS on the ground is, I think, the biggest challenge the industry's got at the moment. It's quite a barrier to entry. It's very complex to work out what the returns are on a battery. Is it doing peak demand shaving or other things behind the meter? Or is that battery looking to participate in front of the meter on the network with an offtake agreement? This is where we've been working really hard in the background to build out that skill set. And amongst Wade and Andrew and Jordan and our expanding team here, we're doing a lot more feasibility. So we can have people come to us now, give us the load profile, give us the site details or the existing system details, the type of business, and we can model up all different value stacks of different size batteries at different investment levels showing different returns and allow the customer to go forward. And if it's a new opportunity, still potentially present PV only, and that's maybe where the customer goes only in the first step, but definitely putting forward a proposal with the battery as well. You know, one thing I've seen is even if you don't land the battery sale at that first proposal, if you are the expert who's putting forward a battery proposal and you understand how to work that out, that's who they're going to come to when they really do look at a commercial battery. You are going to be in the front seat to get that business.
I so agree with you. And I think that when you're the only person, you know, they're getting 3 tenders or whatever it is, and they haven't specified that they're looking for battery necessarily, but you're bringing it up and you're making it very clear that you have that future proofing in mind and that you're thinking about it. Like, it gives a lot of credibility and a lot of trust. Especially, you know, your quote might be a bit more expensive than some of the cowboys out there, but those are the little 1%ers that are going to get you across the line with these big businesses, I think, especially.
Now, you mentioned
100%.
Smart Energy is where you're going to facilitate those. And I know that there's 2 other dates in Melbourne, 1st of May, Brisbane, 29th of May. Now, at the Smart Energy Conference, so that's the 9th and 10th of April, if you haven't booked your tickets yet, listeners, now's the time to do it. There's also the gala dinner. We actually have a couple of tickets that we want to give away. So listeners, help us do it. There's 2 ways you can do it. Number 1, you can enter the Winner Podcast competition, and the details are in the last episode. They're on our socials, so you can have a look at that. And one of the other ways, we have these seats. We want people who want to come along, who listen to the program and want to join us, reach out to us. Haven't worked out how we're going to give them away, but we will. Why the Smart Energy Expo? Why did you select that for your roadshows? And what value do you think it's got for people to come along?
Look, we've been a big supporter of the SEC, like they have been for our industry for many years. We've been involved, whether it's a trade stand or major engagements with the Expo for 10 years now. This year, as I mentioned, we're renting out theatres and we're delivering this Diversify Beyond Solar training seminar on both days. I think it's paramount to be going to large industry events like this. We have 2 primary ones. I know there's a couple of other ones that are around in the industry, but there's 2 primary events. There's this one and the one in October. But the Smart Energy event at the start of this earlier part of the year, I just think it's essential for business owners to attend to ensure that they're staying in front of the curve. As I mentioned, I'm in charge of innovation. All I do is focus on making sure we're changing and evolving with the industry to survive. And if you're a business owner out there and you're not attending an event like the SEC event, you're not really understanding what's changing in the industry, so you can change your business to stay in line with what's happening in the game. So for me, I've attended Smart Energy and the one on All Energy in October every year for the last 15 years, and I just think it's paramount that people attend these things.
I think my opinion is that you can't wait till October. The industry is moving so fast. There's so much innovation. There's so much compliance and so much stuff we have to be across. Wait until October to get our big boost. I don't think this year you can do it. I think you need to get filled up, get understanding, get those connections now, sooner rather than later. Listeners, you can also come and watch us do the podcast live, which is going to be great. We will have a guest. I don't know who it is yet. If you want that to be you, reach out to us as always, or maybe put your submission in the Winner Podcast competition. But hey,
what about
guys, are you
Dutton?
excited about doing the live podcast?
We should get Dutton on.
Yes.
Always a great show. And I'm with you guys. I think, the getting yourself set up for that middle part of the year, and particularly this year, this show's just before the federal election. So it's a chance to be really, really well informed about what you might have to contend with or what the opportunities might be following the election, and hear those policies being delivered live potentially. So I think this one's really critical because of that.
Sorry, Liam, on your list of stuff to talk about, let's talk about the training that you guys offer. So huge buzz when you're on our show last. You're about to launch the first solar sales rep training that the industry had ever seen. So we're dying to hear how that's been going and the sorts of people that you've been training and what sort of feedback those customers have given you from that.
It's been a big thing to embark on, actually. It was almost 2 years ago now that we started New Energy Training, which is part of our group of businesses, but it is its own standalone registered training organisation. And yeah, we got Israel Vogel, our training manager there, to pull together a program which incorporated nationally recognised training on site survey and battery hybrid systems. And then, as we spoke about in the last episode, we developed some other modules on sales professionalism and solar and battery kind of essentials and understanding everything to do with the industry that then makes you become a certified consultant. So if you do this package with New Energy Training, you become a certified consultant. And the dream when I spoke to you guys on the last episode was to create a movement and try to get rid of that cowboy stigma that our industry still kind of has, and have salespeople proudly go out there and quote solar systems, showing the homeowner or the business owner that they've done a level of nationally recognised training and that they actually haven't just come from selling used cars yesterday and they're selling a $20,000 solar and battery system today or a $1 million commercial PV system. Now, in regards to you asking how that's gone, it has been a challenge. I'm not going to say it hasn't been. We're trying to push something into the industry which doesn't have a mandatory requirement for you to have. So as a salesperson, if you've gone and got a lead yesterday and landed a sale yesterday without having any national recognised training, then it has been a very hard push to try to get people to join this movement. As much as it's been hard, we've got over 100 students now which have completed the certified consultant movement. So we are starting to see that movement take in the industry, but I'm still so passionate about it. I'm going to keep pushing, but we need people in the industry to jump behind this and start separating themselves from the companies that are just bringing in people from outside of industry that don't understand what they're doing, that get trained up basically on this is a product we sell, say it's the best, even though it may not be, and go out and see how you can sell. We've got systems which involve batteries, EV chargers, electrification and control. There's so much going on now in a sale, whether it's residential or commercial, that I think the time is now for people to really start upskilling in the sales end of the industry.
People are actually missing out here, Liam. I don't think they realise how powerful that tool is to be properly educated and know what you're talking about. Your chances of closing those sales is so much better because you can actually present that information and you teach them how to present that information so that they can make that sale. So I'm disappointed to hear that the 9 or 10,000 people in our industry haven't done that. And even for electricians and solar system salespeople that have been doing this for a long time, to be offered that separate view or another alternative from a group of people that are also doing it all together in a classroom with competitors and so on is just priceless. I think it's such a great opportunity for people to do that, and obviously it's been a bit slow.
It's not that it's been slow, it's just been a hard push because people are busy, people are out there selling and quoting, and it doesn't stop them from making a sale again the next day. I'm focusing more of my time on things like education, obviously what we spoke about with commercial batteries and chargers, but I'm kind of changing what my day-to-day looks like in this business to free myself up more to get out there in the field, help deliver this message. I was speaking to one of the industry gurus the other day, Lily Pagic, actually, because she just got her educator's ticket, and I was having a chat to her about what she's doing now and about the certified consultant movement. And the fact it involves a site survey module, we were reflecting on how often I see the stock go out the door and try to get returned. She sees the work order come in and goes out to a site where it's poorly site inspected. The battery can't go in a compliant location. One of the big issues we've got is a skill shortage in this industry, and sending out a ton of electricians to sites that can't be put in compliantly is a completely waste of skills. Having an electrician come to one of my warehouses, pick stock up, drive an hour to site, talk with the homeowner for half an hour about how it's not going to work legally, and they have to downsize the system. Homeowner blows up and sends them out away from site, and they bring it back to the wholesaler, want to return it, and then waste a whole day of labour when they could have installed another system. So there's many flow-on effects that it has by there being a poor site inspection and consultation done with the homeowner or business owner at the front end. So this is going to kind of help the rollout of the whole industry by getting the sales end of the industry acting more professional and showing that. So I call out the industry and say, if you've got a team of salespeople and you're out there selling solar to homeowners or business owners, you're no doubt in a competitive environment. If you want to separate yourself from the pack and show leadership to the industry, then look to get some nationally recognised training. We're doing this package called Certified Consultant, which we believe is the ultimate package on top of Site Survey. But you can get a Site Survey module out there from other RTOs as well. I'm just an advocate for professionalism in the sales side of the industry. There's plenty of industry out there for everyone. I think it's the end of the industry that just hasn't been touched. There's been over-regulation on installers. There's been nothing on salespeople.
So that's a really good point. I mean, I've done the training. I've done the certified consultant package. Yeah. And, for our business, we have pretty intense in-house training. The first two modules, I'd say there was probably pretty little that was news to me, but it's always nice to have a refresher and, get the right wordings back into your head of, how to speak to customers and what's important and why, because it can get a bit, you used to get into on the treadmill of it all. But that site survey module in particular, we do a lot of site surveys anyway, but it provided a lot of structure that I could give back to our organization in terms of, making sure the whole team was doing things in a really structured, consistent way. And we are putting a lot more effort into how our design team talks to our installers. And, it makes for a better experience for the customer as well. You will get more sales by being able to tell a customer with confidence, this is where the battery can go and why. Or this is, we need to move over here and this is exactly why. Again, it's legitimacy, it's trust. It's the 1% that will 100% get you over the line. I do think that the big value of this, and unfortunately, it doesn't really help with getting the existing designers on track, but this is exactly what somebody who's new to the industry should do. Exactly like you said, Liam or Karl, one of you guys said, this is how to train someone to do a good job designing solar, 100%.
That's right.
Awesome to hear you're a certified consultant there, Jess. And in regards to those other two modules we developed, if you want to jump in our working group, so we've got a working group we're doing monthly on expanding those modules and putting more and more in there. You should jump in and give us some more content to add into there. It might make it a bit more challenging.
I've been involved in that working group for the certified consultant program. And I mean, it's a bit of an all-star lineup of people who are helping out with that. And Israel will go through and we see the course material and get a lot of feedback. So it's good to see it's not just new energy training, putting out the material, but there's a lot of industry input from some of the biggest brains and notable people in the industry actually getting their fingerprints on it to help you guys just do that last sort of molding part. My question to you is around your feedback from the other RTOs, because you're pushing hard to say that there should be some baseline certified consultant or some baseline training that solar salespeople should go through. What's the feedback from other RTOs about that?
Look, the other RTOs we've been speaking to, there's a number of them offering the site survey module in its own right. They're already supporting our salespeople get some nationally recognised training. I know there's a number of RTOs also assisting people that aren't electricians become all the way through to SAA accredited designers. When they did the recut of education for our industry a bit over 2 years ago, they made a smoother pathway for non-electricians to become accredited designers as well. That is a lot bigger process to do that, and probably not for everyone in the industry, but I think it's probably a good idea for each business to have an accredited designer that's in office or in the sales side of the business, opposed to just, the installer that has the design accreditation. So, we're seeing a number of other RTOs move into that space and deliver it for non-electricians, but I haven't seen anyone else deliver or put together what we're trying to drive, which is a movement around sales professionalism. It's definitely a big area we're focusing on, and as I said, I call upon the industry to show leadership and change there. Speaking of John Grimes as well at the Smart Energy Council, we're a lead member of the Smart Energy Council, a really big supporter of those, and there's been a lot of conversations with John and the SEC, and even speaking to people at SAA about what I believe in, that there should be some type of requirement for people in sales to have some training. Over time, hopefully, we see that come to the market. Just before we jump off that topic of the RTO and new energy training, we around 6 months ago started delivering out of Brisbane and Melbourne at the moment, design and install and battery accreditation courses as well. So we are delivering now the typical training for electricians to get their design and install and battery, and soon we'll be delivering the off-grid courses. So yeah, finding trainers has probably definitely been something hard for our growth in the training business. So if anyone out there has their training ticket and want to come work with some good people, we're looking for more trainers.
In WA, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, sounds like Israel's got a flight booked to WA for a couple of.
We've actually built a mobile rig, so we might have to hit the WA coast and go for a bit of a run, helping the industry get ready for this battery boom that's coming. So definitely thinking.
It's a long drive to WA.
Sounds a lot like you're planning a holiday with the family, Liam, and it just happens to have supply partners written on the side of your caravan.
Oh, that sounds
like a great plan.
That sounds like a brilliant idea, actually. I like that. I'll have to get my two boys and jump in a caravan or something, mate. Go for a trip. That sounds
Put
awesome.
supply partners down the side. We're tax-deductible business expense. Love it.
Well, that's a good segue, Liam, because we will be wrapping up soon, and we normally have a more personal question. So you're a director and a dad. You have a very busy life. Do you want to share, number one, as a family man, how you keep the balance in your life and anything else that you do to keep it level?
Yeah, it's definitely challenging, mate. I've got an 8 and a 10-year-old boys that I co-parent. So I had them by myself last night and did the whole school run this morning, but I wouldn't give it up for the world. So I do try to balance where I can. I spend a couple of days a week. I try to break away from work and pick them up from school a couple of days a week, and they come first, mate. My business comes second, but the business is a big thing in my life as well. You know, business consumes most of your life in a lot of respects, and you know, I've been living and breathing this solar industry for 16 years. So personally, mate, between my kids and this business probably makes up, you know, a big part of my life, but I love both parts of it, mate. So yeah, that's probably, I hope that answers your question on that personal question.
It does.
Yeah.
We're going to have to wrap it up shortly. It'll be good to get you on again in the future anyway, and keep up to date with what you're doing. So before we wrap it up, we're going to have a whip around any last ideas or comments. Jess, we'll start with you.
I'm really excited for the Smart Energy Conference. It's actually my first time. I've done All Energy a couple of times before, but my first time for I've barely spent any time in Sydney. So I'm really, really excited to see how it differs and get some really good value out of it. And yeah, just soak up some fresh ideas, get a bit of time on stage, and really looking forward to seeing lots of people there.
And Karl.
Everything Electric show in Sydney's next weekend. Anyone who's in Sydney should absolutely get down there. It's apparently going to be the largest ever event where people can test drive apparently 100 EVs from the various manufacturers. And given that Tesla only sell 2 models in Australia, of course, people complain that there's not enough variety in the cars that they can buy. I'm betting that the other 98 certainly worth having a look at, checking out. Great people in our industry are going to be there, and from an electrification standpoint, EVs are critical for our industry because they typically increase people's domestic loads by double. That means we can sell them a system that's double the size. That means that they're interested in a battery and all of those things that we do. If anyone gets a chance, I'll be there on the Saturday. I'm driving up Friday and I'm driving home on Sunday. So if anyone wants a ride in a 764 horsepower Tesla, they'll have to stick their hand up and let me know.
All of your fan base on My Efficient Electric Home page. They can meet Karl in the flesh. Yeah. Great plug. Nigel, last comments?
Yeah, I've got two, actually. I've kept my powder dry. I got 2 huge ones to wrap the show up. Number one, breaking announcement. Actually just came through on the emails. The MINS New South Wales government has just announced a $25 million program to help apartment residents get into solar. You'll find the details in all the press releases and everything else that are just been coming out in the last few minutes. But that's big news for New South Wales. And secondly, actually a really important one, I got a public safety alert for our industry because, you know, there's a lot that goes on throughout the year and, you know, we get to go to shows and all those kinds of things, but, you know, junkets, whatever you want to call them. But this year, the public safety alert that I really want to put out there is actually that the springers cruises have this company policy that they only go on junkets every second year, and this year is the Springer's junket year. So what that means is every show, every bar, every opportunity for a good time, weird shoes and late nights, I just want to warn anyone who hasn't been exposed to this to be very, very careful.
I just got way more excited about Smart Energy Conference.
I'm just going to second that. They're a force of nature, those boys, so look forward to seeing them in full force. And Lliam Ricketts from Supply Partners, thanks for coming on. As always, great to chat, mate. Any last comments?
No, thank you, crew. I think I've said it, and probably the last thing is, whatever you're doing, don't sit still. It's probably my advice. Make sure you're looking at how you're going to change your business next 6 months, 12 months to be different and stay ahead of the curve to stay alive in this industry. And hopefully see you all at Smart Energy Conference and Exhibition.
Thanks again, Liam. And we'll be live at that show as well. So if you haven't booked your tickets, now's the time to book your tickets. And also, we've still got that winner podcast competition. So 25 words or less, give us your idea for the podcast to comp@smartenergy.org.au. You may get some tickets to the gala. You will get some free time in a media booth to record your episode. And if it's judged by the panel as the best one, you get a bunch of equipment, microphone, headphones, all the hosting for a year. We'll actually set it up for you. Thanks for listening. As always, there's been lots of news and lots to digest. We really appreciate your support by subscribing and liking, and look forward to catching up with you at the Smart Energy Expo. Have a good one.